So my name is April Mobley, and I am from Mount Washington, Kentucky. And from about the age of 14, I have struggled with dizziness. Walking down a hall was hard to do because you were off balanced. Moments of spinning dizzy, loss of hearing every once in a while, hard to concentrate on different things that were going on. If more than one thing was going on at a time, I was not focused on one thing that was happening. And so I can remember middle school standing at the bus stop and just swaying from side to side to keep my balance from not falling over. And so I hated school. I didn't want to be in school because of that reason, and the fact that I couldn't focus very well on the schoolwork, and the teachers and the bright lights were bothering me. And that's when I started having chronic migraines. So I did go to numerous ENTs. They would tell me that it was either Migraines or it's just part of the chronic ear infections I've had all my life. And they would give me a medicine for motion sickness and send me on my way. For migraines, they would give me migraine medicine and then just send me on my way as well. So I went through life like that. And so I sought out more ENTs and didn't get any help. I started working at Mooney Eye Care Center in Mount Washington, Kentucky. Our doctor there, Dr. Ryan McGiffin, specializes in neurooptometry. And so he ran some testing on me. He saw that I did have some vision issues, but my eyes do not work together. And so he had tried vision therapy, and he was very hopeful that vision therapy would help the vision part of my eyes working together, but he knew something else was wrong. And so he reached out and told me, hey, I think you need to get help somewhere else, just for the non-vision related issues. And so I started Googling, got online. I was so desperate. And it came up to Heuser Hearing Institute. And so I thought, well, it says they specialize in vertigo, dizziness, and all that. So I thought I'd give it a shot. I realized that Ingrid is phenomenal, very knowledgeable, and they diagnosed me with BPPV. And so I would come for adjustments every, I think it was every couple of weeks or once a month or something. And we would do the adjustments and they wouldn't stick. It would work for a little bit and then it would stop. And so Tambry was my audiologist, and I kept telling her my story of when the weather changes, I get worse. If I turn my head a certain way, it gets worse. All the lights make it worse. I couldn't focus. And she really pushed me getting fistula testing. So she went down to Angie and asked her if she should run it. And of course, Angie's like, yes. And so we run the testing, and that's when they find out that I was positive for fistula. We get the positive fistula test the right year. So then I go to a ENT to get scheduled for hopefully the fistula surgery. I am told that not every case is usually a fistula, so they wanted me to see a neurologist for vestibular migraine, and they wanted me to see a neuro-ophthalmologist. I scheduled both appointments. I waited about 4 or 5 months to see the neurologist. And so when the ENT had suggested vestibular migraine, I tried the vestibular migraine diet. So I went on it for 6 months. I saw some improvements, maybe in the migraines area, that maybe some foods do cause migraines, but it didn't help the vestibular issues of walking like you're on a trampoline, of the bright lights, the lack of focus, the not being able to turn your head left to right, the not being able to drive because the cars going by just made you want to hurl because it just made you so dizzy. And at a stoplight, it was impossible with the cars going by. It would just make me spin. And so it got to the point where I was no longer driving. I do have two smaller kids. They are 10 and 7. And so I had to rely on a good friend of mine to taxi me everywhere. And so that was really debilitating because you can't just go out and get groceries. You can't just go and make appointments. You're working around somebody else to take you to those places. So I knew that something had to be done. And so I was patient to wait for the neurologist. They did a CT scan, and the CT scan showed a dehiscence. And so I checked in with Ingrid on that, and they had me come back for more testing. I go back to Ingrid, and I explained to her that I've done the vestibular migraine diet. I explained the pros and cons of that and what came of it. And so I gave her my CT scan results, and the ENT specialist still would not do my surgery. I was devastated. I thought that I was going to get help, and I was denied that help. And so Ingrid redid all the testing, and it showed again that there was definitely a fistula. So she had mentioned that there's a surgeon in Pennsylvania that if I wanted to drive up there, that he would do the surgery for me. And I jumped on board. I was scared at first because I don't like doctors. I don't like hospitals. I don't like any of that. And so my friend's like, we're going on an adventure to Pennsylvania. And so I've never had surgery, never been put to sleep. I was super scared. And so we make the hike to Pennsylvania. We meet with Dr. Gaudre the next day. And I don't really remember the appointment because when you have these vestibular issues, you aren't really aware of what's going on in the world. You're outside your body, in all honesty, you're exhausted, you're tired. The bright lights were on. He was talking, air conditioning was going. I could not focus. And thankfully my friend had went with me, and she did all the talking and everything. And I just looked at him and I said, I just need help. And so he could tell. He was very patient and kind. And he's the first surgeon, thanks to Ingrid for sending me there, that actually listened and heard me. And he treated me as if I was his daughter. And he said, all right, we're gonna do the surgery if you're on board. And I said, I'm on board. And so what's great is Dr. Gaudre and Ingrid do research together. So it's amazing that both of them work together and care for people so much, because so many people suffer with this and aren't getting the help that they need. And so the next day we go into surgery, and of course Gaudre is amazing. And we come out, and surgery was a success. He found the fistula. When he moved the table a certain way, he saw the fluid come up, and he actually saw where my ears have been trying to heal itself for so many years. In that ear also, the eardrum was so thin, it looked like there was a huge hole in my ear. So he was able to fix that, and he was able to find the fistula. And so the next day we had to go for our post-op. So we got up, and aside from anesthesia side effects, that happens, but as my friend and her daughter were walking me down the hall, I could tell. I told them, I said, look, I'm walking straight. And the first thing I noticed, 24-hour post-op, the world was straight for once. Like, walls weren't moving. The floor wasn't coming out from underneath me. And it was just the most amazing thing I've ever experienced. And so I get to Dr. Gaudre's office, and he is so excited, of course. And so then we head back home, and I do post-op with Ingrid, and the testing shows that what they did no longer showed signs of the fistula. Then it started acting up again. I got really discouraged, and I'm like, Ingrid, what's going on? I had the surgery, I was doing great, and now it seems like I'm having the same symptoms again. And so she had me come back a little bit, May, June, about 4 months later. I had COVID. And so I had already had the COVID vaccine, and they had mentioned how COVID attacks the soft tissue in the body. I think that's what she said. Anyway, so COVID had made symptoms worse as well. And so she was like, well, let's not just leave it at COVID. Let's see the other ear. So we did the other ear of fistula testing. And my left ear was so bad that the right ear really didn't show much of anything. And so when they did the retesting, it showed that there was a fistula in my right ear as well. So with COVID and the symptoms of it, and then with the fistula in the right ear, I was looking at another surgery. And so we got the other surgery scheduled. Thank goodness Ingrid caught it, and Dr. Gaudre immediately agreed to do the surgery. So then I had my other surgery in December of 2021. So I go up to Pennsylvania again. The whole ride was different. And so I could tell that the success of the first surgery, I see the symptoms of, oh, well, I'm not as symptomatic. But it still was a point where I wasn't driving, and walls were moving, lights were bright. I worked from home because I couldn't go into the office. It was a lot of stress. So I thought, I really have to get this other ear done. So we get to Pennsylvania, I'm pretty good, and I walk into the office to do my pre-op appointment with Dr. Gaudre, and he was blown away at the difference even in my character and just the happiness in general. He was excited to see that the first surgery was so successful, and it brought life back to me, and he was just amazed, and I was too. So we get through that pre-op appointment. I was actually aware and coherent of what he was saying. I didn't need my friend to do the talking for me, and I was actually able to carry on a conversation. I was able to stand in one spot, but I still got the overstimulated symptoms. If he did a lot of talking, it overstimulated me, but it wasn't as bad as the first time. So we go in for surgery, and successful surgery number 2. So second surgery's done, and I meet up with Dr. Gaudre and Ingrid, I guess like 3 or 4 weeks later, and I was shouting from the rooftops about, like, I'm driving. I walk with my friend. We've walked for 10 years now, and before surgery, it was at the point where I was on walking sticks. I had to hold on to her arm. I would run her into the mailbox because I would just walk sideways. And like at work, people would come and talk to me at many different times, and I don't even remember what the first person said. It was just a lot. And so after the second surgery, I could actually hold down a conversation. I could walk our 5 miles we do without poles. I take my dog now with me because I don't need to hold on to her or, fear of running into a mailbox. And I am driving now. And my kids have noticed that I do a lot more with them. I'm less tired, less exhausted. I can actually stand and do a school walkthrough with the school at Heuser Hearing, when before I could not have stood there for more than 30 seconds without holding onto a wall or holding onto a table or grabbing your arm. Just seeing the success from the surgery has just given me life that I haven't known for over half my life. And if it wasn't for Ingrid and Tambry and Angie and all of Heuser Hearing Institute, I would not be where I'm at today for sending me to Dr. Godre, who agreed to do the surgery all the way in Pennsylvania. And I really think we need to get the word out to help others in this particular situation as well.